Welcome to Denver Startup Week. I'm Ben Data, co-chair of DSW. This year marks the 10-year anniversary of Denver Startup Week. This community has been the catalyst for lots of change over the past decade, and this week we're coming together to celebrate the past and dream big for the future. We are able to bring Denver Startup Week to this community thanks to our 2021 sponsors. Thank you to our HQ and title sponsor, Amazon, and our title sponsors, whose leadership makes this week come to life. Capital One Cafe, Downtown Denver Partnership, Fluid Truck, Hotel Engine, and WeWork. And our track sponsors, who have made all of the great content you're hearing today possible. Founder Track, Kickstart, Growth Track, Friday Health Plans, Developer Track, Quizlet, Product Track, Palantir, Designer Track, Battery 621 in the Public Works, People Track, Exactly, and Spotlight event sponsor, Strat Labs. Our headline event sponsors are bringing the excitement this week. Thank you to B-Side Fun, Colorado Public Radio, Comcast, Coors Brewing Company, Denver Pavilions, Entrepreneurship at the University of Denver, Gusto, JP Morgan Chase, Method, Moss Adams, Pine Insurance, Promontory Mortgage Path, Red Bull Basement, Southwest, Tattered Cover, and VF Venture Foundry. Finally, thank you to our partner and member sponsors listed on the screen. Please say thank you to these companies as you enjoy our hybrid Denver Startup Week. And don't forget to use hashtag #DenStartupWeek to share your experience and moments of inspiration on social media. Have a great week.
The Public Works is a Denver, Colorado-based design, fabrication, and multimedia marketing firm that allows your company to craft an authentic presence to your target audience. For the past 15 years, the Public Works media team has been telling stories with words, pictures, and films. Our unique approach to brand storytelling allows us to get strong reactions and results from our content. We work in experienced and nimble teams with our crew of producers, directors, and cinematographers that all have first-hand experience and international presence. We are fortunate to have amazing clients that allow us to get wherever we need to go with the right tools for the highest production value. Lots of people can take a pretty picture. Just look at Instagram. While we believe our images speak for themselves, what really sets us apart is our decades of experience, our network, and our ability to make shit happen when it counts. We love bringing unexpected partners together to create added value for everyone, and most of all, we love when we finish a job confident that we've not only executed, but elevated the end product, and we know that everyone involved enjoyed the process. Our company was founded on the idea that life is about learning and teaching through every experience. We apply a strict discipline of work hard, play hard, and make great fucking work. We amplify awesome. We surround ourselves with the best and feed off of infectious innovation, ideas, collaboration, and building long-term friendships and partnerships. Contact us anytime for a meeting at our office, golf course, or on the chairlift.
Hi everyone, welcome to Denver Startup Week. I'm Castle, the Designer Track Chair and member of the Denver Startup Week Organizing Committee. Thank you for joining us for the 10th anniversary of Denver Startup Week. At Denver Startup Week, we strive to make all of our sessions a space where attendees can connect, learn, and grow, regardless of age, gender identity, gender expression, race, ability, or sexual orientation. A special thank you to our sponsors for their support in helping us keep DSW free and accessible for all, especially our Designer Track sponsor, Battery 621, and the Public Works. Thank you for joining us and have a great week.
Great, I think we're live. Hi, everybody. My name is Chad Person. I'm the Design Track co-chair, and I want to just take a moment to introduce Brennan Gilbert. I'm pretty excited about this talk. Brennan is a creative powerhouse, and he's one of the people, really one of the first creatives I met when moving to Denver about 7 years ago. And what I love about Denver, what I love about Brennan and kind of his contribution to Denver is that he has a true, like, insatiable like creative lust and desire to experiment, and he just continues to find motivation day after day to like try new things and make interesting stuff happen. So when we saw this pitch come in, I was like super excited about it. And I think that anything he's got to say here today is going to be valuable. So without further ado, Brennan, take it away.
Awesome. Thanks, Chad. Appreciate it. Well, hello, everyone. I'm just going to get my screen sharing going, and then we'll jump into it. Chad or Nishi, can you just confirm that that's the slide?
Looks good.
All right. Cool. So hopefully, it's like school. Hopefully you're in the right class here. This is So You Think You Need In-House Design? Let's find out. Appreciate the introduction, and also just for Denver Startup Week, letting me host this session this year. So let's jump into it here. So structuring design for your business doesn't have to scare you. I get it. Design, especially when you're not a designer, can be intimidating. It can be confusing. It can feel very high stakes. But frankly, it's not scary. Scary clowns, horrifying. But design and structuring design for your business doesn't have to scare you. My hope is, well, actually, let's start with this. Product design, also in our world of startups, people tend to have a better grasp of what that is for some reason. And yet brand design is this big mystery. People don't know what it is. Sadly, a lot of people don't even know if it's important, let alone how to resource against it. So hopefully we quell those fears today. And just for the purposes of this talk, we will be focused largely on brand design and that category of, commercial design for marketing, sales, CS, et cetera, sort of teams. But some of this is applicable to the world of product design as well. If you only get one thing from today's talk, my hope is that you move from fear to confidence when deciding which design structure is best for your business. We will do that with 3 key steps. First of all, we will go over common pitfalls. What is stopping you from getting started with this process? Secondly, key considerations. Do you even need design? A lot of people joke, oh, I'm a designer, I'm biased. No, if you don't need design, don't resource against design. Some of you won't need that, but hopefully, if you're evaluating this process, you've already decided that you do need that. And third, we will go through the process itself. What should your design resourcing process actually look like? So with that, allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is Brennan. I am a brand designer and creative director for the last 12 years professionally, a bit longer non-professionally in school and whatnot. 8 of those years have been in startups, and a lot of that time with Denver Startup Week. It's been awesome to participate over the years. This is my first solo session, but I participated in panels. It's an awesome event. Glad that they put it on for free every year. Formerly, I was the creative director at a local startup here in Denver called Go Spot Check. You might even recognize some of our t-shirts. We passed out hundreds, if not maybe close to 1,000 of these over the years. That was always a very fun project for me and my team. And these days, I am senior brand designer at another local startup here in Denver called Thanks. We do customer engagement software for restaurants. All to say, whether it's agencies, freelance, in-house consulting, what have you, everything that I'm speaking towards today, I have had direct firsthand experience, and you could say I'm passionate about all this stuff. So let's jump into it. First things first, we will be going over common pitfalls. What's stopping you from starting this process? And honestly, this is the biggest one that I hear, FOMO. If you've lived under a rock, this means fear of missing out. And it's because, the leading startups, we have so many of them here in Colorado. Off the top of my head, Guild, Gusto, Twilio. They've done X, I should do X. But, if you're a business owner, you know that your business is unique. It's unique with your sales team. It's unique with your marketing team. It's unique with your design team. And when we get to part 3, the evaluation process, we'll go over how to evaluate for your business, not because of FOMO. Another thing that I hear a lot is ROI is impossible to prove. And, again, that's just not true. Product design, I think people tend to measure product design a little bit more tangibly. They're like, oh, we have product designers, we have product engineers, we measure towards that final output. Why is brand design any different? You might be afraid of it because it's things like logos. How do we measure a good logo? Newsflash, that's always going to be hard to measure. But things like commercial design and in-house brand design, you can measure that output. You just measure against the final thing, right? A great tangible example is your team does design work for an upcoming event booth. You don't measure like, oh, what hours did they spend? You measure how many leads did we get from this event, right? And that directly falls into your design team the same way that your marketing KPIs work for your marketing team. So it's difficult, I'll give you that, but it's not impossible. And last common pitfall, we already have product designers. Again, hate to burst your bubble, but if you're going with product designers for everything, you have jack of all trades, master of none. Your product designers probably aren't going to love that. You're not going to love the results. And so design is not equal. They are different resources for different reasons. Next up, let's review some key considerations. Do you really need design? And we'll go over two categories, starting with workload, and then we'll move into brand. So what I mean with workload is I'll give you a few questions to ask yourself. And I suggest over the course of about 3 months, you probably don't want to do shorter than that. You want to take these notes of these questions I'm about to ask you and just thoroughly document that. That's you'll be able to zoom out a little less bias after 3 months and figure out, okay, like based off of these questions, I do need design, or I do need this type of agency, or I do need this. If you're just trying to guess out of nowhere without measuring this stuff, it's not going to be helpful. I've used any kind of project management tool for this, including Asana, but really anything works. So within workload, first important question, does your team need design support? How often is your team spending their time doing design tasks? Are there recurring design related pain points that are happening purely because you don't have this resourced against? And do you have freelance design, but maybe they're never available when you need, right? It's very easy to think, again, maybe because of FOMO or other things, that person's doing that, I need it. But do you actually need it? Make sure. Secondly, what's your realistic design workload? Again, there might be some non-design folks in the room, some commercial leaders. You might not know the first place to start with design, but I bet if you sat down and thought about it, you could understand, I think a designer could do this. Funny thing is, people in my trade tend to be a lot of jack of all trades. They can do a lot of stuff. So if you think a designer can do it, they probably can, or they can confidently point you into a resource that could help with that thing. So this is another helpful indicator. And then lastly, with workload, what important tasks are currently being missed? Again, nothing, super out there with any of these topics, but I think it's so easy to just get intimidated with design as opposed to something you might know, like hiring for marketing. But this is the same for hiring any other role at your company. Are you dropping the ball on a lot of stuff? If so, write those down. And once you have enough workload, hire against it. So the other category when doing your key considerations is brand. Again, very ethereal for a lot of people, but let's demystify that. The first question is, does your current brand work? All I mean by that is, it is a little intangible for sure, but is your brand consistent? Is it maintainable? Is it actionable? Do the people interacting with your brand, a very literal translation is putting together a deck. Do they know which color of green to use so that it always looks like your company and not somebody else's? And does it appeal to your desired audiences? People think that design is making things look pretty. Hopefully every single design track session counterbalances that, but it's not just making things look pretty. It is, communicating against goals for specific audiences. How important is your brand? And frankly, this one, you might be a little bummed, but if your leadership doesn't believe in the power of brand, don't fight an uphill battle, because then you're trying to define the abstract world of brand, the abstract world of design and creative for commercial teams, in addition to saying, we need to hire for this person. that is not going to go well. I can assure you, I had firsthand experience of consulting with a smaller company. We went through so many questions. The CEO himself asked me great questions. And then at the very end, when we're like, maybe there's a creative director position at your company, he circled back and just asked me, so remind me what design is again? That's not going to work out. You know, if you're fighting all these uphill battles all at once, it's not going to work. So make sure that your team actually cares about this. And then what's your marketing like? I think this is another easy one to just gloss over. But if you don't have marketing figured out, design can't solve your problems unless it's seen. And, you know, design is sexy, it's fun, it's cool stuff, but you should probably start with marketing if you don't have that figured out. Start there, then you can move into design. It's a very good land and expand sort of approach. And so with that, let's get into the meat of this presentation. What should your design structure actually look like? So this will be a pretty manageable process. We are going to go over how to evaluate your business in detail, you know, very specific to you. We will then review your available options. I'll give you a little bit of education on the topic of how to resource against design, especially for you non-design folks. And then 3, how you can confidently make your decision. First and foremost, evaluate your business in detail. And again, you can write these questions down. I think they'll be sending presentations out after the fact. So if you don't want to take any notes, that's fine too. Question number 1, are you seeking thought partnership or execution? I think everyone is familiar with a scale like this, but this is no different for designers. If you're looking for a thought partnership, someone to actually help you figure out more of the why and the where, then you would want a more senior sort of person versus, you know, if you're looking for just a pair of hands and execution work, I'm the marketing lead. I know exactly what I need, and I don't really need to deal with, you know, the question sort of process. Then you would look for a more junior sort of person, literal person creating the deliverables. Keep in mind, the more junior you go, the more time you are going to spend managing this person and hand-holding. So that's certainly a consideration. The next question when evaluating your business is, where would design live at your business? You know, I think that's very easy to gloss over, and there are a lot of different setups for different design teams. And let's go over a few examples because people might not be familiar with figuring this out within their own organization. So these are the general buckets of where brand design might live at any given startup or any company. A marketing team implies that your designers, you know, usually no more than a handful, would sit on your marketing team and report to your marketing lead, right? Like a VP of marketing, a CMO, something like that. Guild, I have some former colleagues who work at Guild. They have since changed their business model, but when they were smaller, this was the exact sort of setup that they did have. And so it's usually for smaller teams, maybe 5+ folks, including marketing, with very limited output. It's not like you're churning through a lot of projects all the time. This is very manageable. You might have 1 or 2 designers. It's easy for a marketer to manage this person. The next setup isn't all this dissimilar. This is actually what we do currently at my startup, Thanks. You might have a design resource or a team of design resources who report to marketing. I report to our VP of marketing, but they still service the broader commercial team. They don't just do marketing projects. They help your whole commercial function side of the business, sales, CS, marketing, even leadership and HR. This is usually good for Thanks, for example, is like about 50 people in total. We do have a small marketing and sales team, but we also have our other functions that collectively, it kind of makes up half the business, and that's who that's good for. Brand team, you might notice a pattern here. As you do more stuff, as you become a bigger company, you might want to have a more narrowed focus for how you structure your brand design team. So a brand team is going to be someone like Zendesk or MailChimp. These are these really large startups who have been very successful, and they are churning out enough work to justify having a dedicated brand team. If you have this structure, you might have a brand design team with a brand leader. So they are no longer reporting to, say, your CMO, but maybe to a creative director or a director of brand, some kind of director level role. And so this is good for when you have about 10+ dedicated team members for just brand design. And again, you have dedicated leadership. And lastly, I can't imagine there's a ton of people that this applies to, but a dedicated design team. And what I mean by that, why is that different from brand team? This includes product design. This includes any and all other design functions. It's some giant arm of the business in and of itself. And, you know, this is kind of reserved for companies like Airbnb or Apple, very design centric, very design focused. They might even have a C-suite who's focused on design. Wouldn't really recommend this setup for, you know, most other companies. And then lastly, this goes without saying, but you do want to evaluate your career path for your designers. I don't know where this notion came from that designers don't care about business or their career trajectory. That's frankly not true. Designers are as important as any other function at your business. And so don't bring someone in-house if you don't understand what that career path might look like. And next, you got to review your options. And what I mean by that is, you know, let's make this more tangible and figure out, I'll give you the examples of all these different categories so that it doesn't feel so mysterious when you are actually writing your job description to figure out if you need design in-house. First up, types of design resources. There are all kinds of structures, so let's just go through these. In-house, hopefully very straightforward. That was the title of this talk. In-house means you have a full-time in-house person salaried. Very straightforward. There are a lot of different setups for external vendors. First and foremost, many of y'all might be familiar with agency setups. And agencies run the gamut. I think sometimes people hear agency and they picture this one specific stereotype in their head, often from a bad experience. Not all agencies are bad. You can be as small as, say, 2 or 3 people. There is an awesome local studio here in Denver called Studio Mast. They are 3 people and they do amazing work, right? There are medium agencies. Another awesome local agency is Flow State Branding. A little bit bigger team, but medium overall size company. And then you have your large or gigantic agencies, which I think is where most people go with their heads. Someone like Collins, who is literally doing work for, you know, the Fortune 100. Most startups don't need that, but, you know, at some point you might. Robinhood didn't need that until they did. And so you can also go with freelancers. The difference being agency is 2 or more is how I'm defining it. Freelance is going to be an individual. Also keep in mind with agencies going from small to large, that does not necessarily beget quality, but more so pricing. You know, it's pretty straightforward. You might go a little more affordable with smaller teams, but what you're trading that out for is time. It might take them a little bit longer. It might, you know, cost you a little less, but quality hopefully is similar across that gamut. And then you also have this option. I don't know if my slides are still showing up, but do nothing, right? And that doesn't literally mean do nothing, but you might realize you have some design needs and you don't need a designer. My partner, Leela, she helps with their company's marketing and they use Canva. And I know a lot of designers are very anti-Canva. If you're afraid of Canva stealing your job, it might have already stolen your job. Double check that. It's really not a scary tool. It's a very cool tool. And you just got to bring more value to the table than Canva does. But a lot of people will resource against that. And then frankly, most people do hybrid combination of any one of these things. You don't have to just do one of these structures. Skill sets and titles. So again, I think from the outside, this stuff can be fairly intimidating. So let's just quickly cover it. Starting with skill sets, quick note for any Super Marvel fans, I did watch all the movies over the pandemic, but I am by no means an expert on superpowers for these superheroes, but these guys came to mind. So jack of all trades is going to be somebody who does a lot of stuff pretty well, you know, like Iron Man. I think he's smart and I feel like he does everything. I don't know quite what his superpower is because he just built a suit. I don't know. He does everything. And then you've got a specialist. Hulk just smashes things. He's very good at it. He's much better than Iron Man at smashing things, but he's a specialist. When we reviewed the evaluation part of this talk, this is very easy to figure out. If you were tracking things, like I told you, for 3 months, and you can start to flesh out that work, if you are only ever doing presentations, That's the only thing getting missed. Hire a specialist, hire a presentation designer. That person will do a great job on that one specific thing. If you're doing new stuff every day or every week, hire someone who's more jack of all trades. And then titles, because again, I do think that gets confusing, needlessly so. Again, product designers tend to be product designers. It's usually, we'll go over that bucket. Brand design is all over the place, and it doesn't have to be. So what people usually mean when they go with graphic and brand design is, from your perspective, if you don't care about the details of what they do, you are going to find the most generic jack of all trades skill sets with a graphic or brand designer. Maybe less so brand design, more so graphic designer, but it's fairly high on the jack of all trades. But it is people who, for our purposes, do the marketing stuff. They do trade shows. They do your brand identity work. They even do your decks. Although, I personally don't love putting together decks, but that is a big part of my job. Next up, we have art, creative, design, direction. Again, you can be literal with this assumption. It doesn't have to be confusing, except I think people get confused because they see director and they think it's a director level title. That's not necessarily the case. You could have a junior art director because it's someone more with the strategy and the ideas, maybe a little less on the execution, although usually these roles are hybrid. And so, comparatively, if you want more strategy, thought leadership, you might want art or creative or design director title. Again, we're not too focused on product UX, UI, visual design, but these people, they help with your product side of the business and less so with your brand design. And then specialist. I don't know if y'all can see this image. This is one of my favorite movies, Mrs. Doubtfire, but there's a scene before they hire Robin Williams, which is a funny thing to land on. They're interviewing all these nannies. And this lady, I always think about her with specialists because she just goes through a laundry list of, I don't do this, I don't do this, I don't do this, I don't do this. That's what you're going to get with a specialist. I interviewed a guy one time who did that. And it's like, okay, what do you do? But sometimes that's necessary. If you need a really dedicated expert, go with a specialist. And then, of course, seniority. I don't have to waste a ton of time on this. If you're junior, you're going to do more hand holding. And if they're C-suite, they're going to be more expensive, but hopefully they're fairly self-sustainable. And so, Kiana's roles over the years, he's very chipper, but he's still very cool in his older age. So all together now, right? On the left, these roles generally require more support. On the right, larger investments. All I mean is that on the left, you're generally either going to be spending more of your time or more of your money over the long run because you're doing salary and benefits. And on the right, you might have larger investments upfront, like working with an agency on one big project, but you do get the higher quality more quickly with that. So let's look at an example because I think that'll make it more tangible. You come to me, you say, I have tracked my work for 3 months and I know that I need to make an internal hire. We have salary for it. We know that we have enough work going out the door. And, that's all it indicates is you have a lot of work that needs to get done consistently and you have quick turnarounds. So you need someone on staff. Great, internal. Next up, you say you need jack of all trades. What that means to me is that you've evaluated your work and you have a lot of varying stuff going on. You don't just have a specialist, you have a lot of type of work going out the door. And so this is leading us more towards maybe a graphic design title or a graphic design skill set. And then lastly, say you want to aim for more junior. Now, that is a good luck scenario because if you want full-time hire who's very skilled at a lot of things, but still has high quality of work, junior is going to be a little bit harder to hire for, but not necessarily impossible. You're just going to, have to work with your budget and figure that out. I would recommend a mid-level graphic designer in this exact scenario. For the fellow designers in the room, this is what shows up when you Google mid-level graphic designer. It's very creative there. And so let's just recap because I know that was a lot in a quick amount of time. We just evaluated the process, which to be manageable, all you have to do is evaluate your current business in detail. Again, take about 3 months, track that work somehow, and then evaluate it and see what type of stuff you need. use that to review your available options. Again, you can go back and reference this talk and understand like, oh, what is a graphic designer? What is the difference between senior and mid-level? What are my salary options for that sort of stuff? Or do I need to hire agency or just download some software? And then hopefully make your decision with confidence. That's the whole goal, right? And so hopefully through today's talk, this demystifies a lot that goes into this decision process, and you can walk away with confidence when deciding which design structure is best for your business. Remember, structuring design for your business is not scary. I'm sorry for anyone I scared at the beginning with the image of the scary clown. Design is not scary. Structuring design for your business is not scary. But if it is, you can contact me. Or reach out to any of your design friends and figure that out. I am available at Brennan Gilbert on any of the platforms that y'all should care about. I'm also on TikTok, but I don't think you need to know that. And you can also email me at dsw@brennangilbert.com. That is Denver Startup Week. That's not the shoe company. And yeah, with that, thank you very much. Chad, I don't know if we're doing Q&A. I don't know if anyone even has Q&A. Y'all can reach out to me via these platforms as well, but that is my session.
Great, thanks, Brennan. I think to answer your question, we could certainly take questions. People are welcome to put them into the chat, or you're welcome to, I think we'd have to ask Brian actually if we can turn on audio for participants, because that one I haven't seen. But I think we've got time, and if you want to do Q&A, that'd be great.
Cool. Yeah, let's give it we'll give it 30 seconds here. I think that's enough for someone to raise their hand. And if we don't have any questions, we'll let everybody go here.
I've got a quick question for you. Yeah, since we're here. So, you've worked for a couple of startups and obviously worked with a lot of people and managed a lot of designers. And thinking about the talk that you just give, I would love to hear an example, if you could somewhat anonymize something, of a situation where you might have found yourself where, the staffing didn't meet the requirements for the organization, and how that kind of affected, the quality of internal design and the organization as a whole.
Yes, sir. Yeah, good question. I don't think my former teammate would mind me sharing this, but at my former employer, Go Spot Check, we had hired an illustrator because at the time we were doing a ton of illustration work. Our brand was very centralized around illustration work. Naturally, over time, we have new marketing leaders coming in, different goals, different objectives, and the brand morphs as any good brand should to hit those objectives. We no longer needed dedicated illustration work. That was something she was very passionate about. You could tell she didn't love doing just dedicated graphic design work, although she became very, very good at it. And so we did have to let that person go. And that was a learning moment for me, because I did not handle that situation great. I think anytime you have to let go one of your first employees, that is a rough thing to do for the first time, but it ended up working out better for the business, and I think better for this individual as well. Any other questions? Let's see. It does look like we have one here. What would you recommend to a junior mid-level designer trying to figure out where they should land? Great question. I think maybe this is too hippy dippy, but follow your passions. In the same way that I would recommend the people doing the hiring track what kind of work gets done, I would recommend you track what kind of work really fuels your fire and really gets you excited to get out of bed every day, and then hope to aim for that. I think gig work tends to be a little overrated because you don't get benefits, you don't get all that stuff. You do get the flexibility, and some people really prefer that over something like health benefits. But just depends on how much work you want to put in each week, what type of work, and then you can aim for which industry and what type of team. Great question. Thank you for asking.
Hey Brennan, I've got a quick question to kind of follow up on that one. So when it comes to, I think, agency versus in-house, one of the themes that I've seen over the years is like ongoing ownership. And I wonder if that plays into somebody's decision as far as like,
you deliver something if you're agency, and maybe it's out of your hands, versus if you're in-house, you see maybe several iterations of that, or like longer term ownership. Should that drive someone's decision, you think, where they end up?
You mean in terms of the person wanting to be a designer and be the design resource themselves?
I mean, as far as like if someone's trying to decide whether to go agency versus in-house, it seems like with Go Spot Check, you essentially owned that, right? For 5+ years. The agency, you might not have the same number of cycles, let's say, on a brand. And I think some people that might be attractive to others that might not be.
I think that's a great question. And I think you summarized it perfectly already. I think for someone who wants to be wearing a lot of hats and kind of changing up what they do more frequently, they might want to go agency, because those relationships might be long, but the engagements might be a little shorter and more sporadic. If you really want to double down on, say, something like brand design, that's my passion. To your point, led that for 6.5 years at Go Spot Check, and really got to refine that year after year after year. So yeah, I think if you're the type of person who really wants to see something through to the finish, you might want to go in-house. Whereas if you really want to wet your beak with a lot of different things, you might want to go to the agency side of things. Cool. Well, thank you all for the questions. Again, anyone else has questions, feel free to hit me up on these platforms or email.
There's one more.
Like, oh, yes.
Yep.
Let's see. Have you ever been in a role where you took action to develop the designer career path in a company? How do you approach paving that path where it doesn't exist? Yes. So again, I had firsthand experience with this when growing my team at my former company. I was very thankful to be able to grow that team slowly and methodically over time. So it went in waves. It got more stressful for me over time because I was taking on, I had more of the burden in doing that work until we could justify a hire, and we come back down on that. But that was the way that I approached it. Is I just made sure that I was probably 20 hours over indexed on doing one specific thing. Our first hire was a front-end developer, and I was spending way too much time doing that. And I knew for a fact we had enough work to hire that person in-house. Long-term paths and defining that for people, I think that's tough. I made sure that, I partnered very closely with leadership, and they valued design. So we were able to work together to usually figure that out. But we also tended to hire a lot of specialists. So there wasn't a lot of changing careers. And I think sometimes you're just at the mercy of how much your company grows. But yeah, great question. Cool. Okay, well, unless I missed another one, I think that's everything. So yeah, y'all hit me up on this. Thank you again for those of you that attended. And thank you to Denver Startup Week for putting this on, and to Nishi and Chad for helping organize this.
Thanks, everyone. Great job, Brennan.